In the USA, the American free reed organ was the pinnacle of music production, with free reed technology. But many steps of development were needed before it was possible to build such a fascinating instrument. Let's take a look at the origins of an American free reed organ. An American free reed organ consists of two main components. The bellows, wind technique. And the free reed technique. Origin of the organ bellows. The bellows are the lungs, the air, the breath of the instrument. Several development stages were necessary before bellows for organs were developed. There were different bellows techniques around the world, depending on region and time era. Around 1800 BC, Babylonian and Hittite metalworkers used a pot bellows to melt metal. Then the Egyptians were also using pot bellows to melt metal. In Egypt, in Alexandria, the 3rd century BCE, the Greek inventor and mathematician, Cecilia, experimented with bellows technology. Cecilia developed a pressure pump to generate a jet of water, or to lift water from one level to another. And he has developed a similar technique to supply flue pipes with wind. It is not known exactly what the first hydraulic organ of Cecilia looked like. But archaeological finds and the old descriptions give an insight. This water organ is said to be the first organ in history, and already had all the components of a church organ or an American free reed organ. Stops, keys, wind chamber, bellows. Since the 2nd century CE, records are known that similar organs were already operated, with bellows without water hydraulics. The hydraulis was known in almost all of Europe. But after the fall of the Western Roman Empire, it disappeared from Europe. From the 4th to the 9th century very little is known about the further development of the bellows organ. From the 9th century CE onwards, there are illustrations of organs with bellows in the religious Psalter books in Europe. As there are almost no other records from this period, these pictures are often used as verification of the state of organ technology. In the medieval time, these Psalter organs are often played for or by King David. Although there was no organ at the time of King David. As you can also see, a second player was needed at this time to operate the bellows. The bellows player was a husband, a devil, or an angel. The bellows of the medieval organ were operated by the good and the evil one. One of the first technical descriptions of the construction of an European organ can be found from the 12th century. The organs got bigger and bigger. Special bellows were invented to produce enough air for the large organs. Separate rooms were built behind the organs with bellows operators, calcantes. These bellows work with the pressure wind technique. Air was blown into the pipes from below. An exception to this development is Leonardo da Vinci's organ, from 1503. This double-acting bellows organ was far ahead of this time. Double-acting piston bellows was already used in ancient China for metalworking. The European organ bellows are the origin of the European free-reed harmonium organ bellows and the American free-reed organ bellows. They have been technically very well documented since around the 17th century. Origin of the free-reed technique. Even if these instruments are called organ, pump organ, or American organ, these instruments are not organs, as they Europe organs we have seen before. These instruments are not played with pipes, but with a free-reed technique. This technology does not require resonators or pipes. The pipes you see sometimes on American free-reed organs are only for aesthetics reason. These pipes are dummies from wood that have been artfully painted. So if you want to call these instruments organs, please call them free-reed organs. Don't worry, even though many of these instruments look very similar, by the end of this series, you will be able to separate optical almost any free-reed organ from a real organ. First of all, what is free-reed? One of the oldest variant of free-reed sound production is the jaw harp. A freely vibrating part, also known as a reed, is tapped in front of the mouth. The reed begins to vibrate at a constant frequency. The mouth is used as a resonating body. This type of instrument is found all over the world, comes in thousands of variations, with thousands of names. One of the oldest jaw harp finds to date is from Taosi, in Shaanxi, China, dated to around 2000 BCE. In areas where natural bamboo or reeds are found, jaw harps are usually built from one single wood piece, called ideoglot jaw harp. Jaw harps made of several parts are called heteroglot and are usually made of metal. Heteroglot jaw harp. However, there are also ideoglot jaw harps made of metal, or heteroglot jaw harps made of bamboo. The tone has a constant pitch, but the player can create overtones by changing the shape of the mouth and the amount of wind. But you could only play one note with these instruments. This technique was further developed in Asia over 2000 years ago. The free reeds were attached to bamboo pipes. This pipe was inserted into a gourd, or wood, that serves as a wind chamber. The gourd could now be used to supply several pipes with wind at the same time. The pipes have a finger hole outside the gourd. The reeds will only vibrate when these finger holes are closed. With these instruments it was now possible to play more notes, chords, at the same time. These Asian free reed organs can usually be played in both wind directions. Wind blowing in or sucking out. The tone can be influenced expressively by more or less air pressure, without losing the pitch. These instruments have developed over a long period of time, and are often symbols of the identity of ethnic groups. The Khaen is the national instrument of Laos. In some ethnic groups, the music of these instruments is understood as an expression of an individual language. One of the oldest of these free reed organ musical instruments is the Chinese sheng. Pictograms of prototypes of the Chinese sheng date back to 1100 BCE. The sheng is also known in Korea as songwang, and in Japan as sho. Asia free reed instruments are the free reed instrument's origin, the ancestors of the American free reed organ. Free reeds in Europe. As in Asia, jaw harps were the first free reed instruments in Europe. There are no exact records or archaeological finds when jaw harps have existed for first time in Europe. Scientifically unconfirmed assumptions vary between the 1st century BCE and the 9th century CE. Ecology currently suggests the 9th century CE for the first jaw harps in Europe. Jaw harp illustrations in Europe. 13th to 14th century. Angel playing the jaw harp, Exeter Cathedral in England. 1511, Musica getouched, by Sebastian Verdung, which he describes as a rural instrument. 1570, The Festival of Fools, by Peter Bruegel the Elder. Jaws harps have been made in Maulne, Austria, from the 17th century to the present day. 1716, Cabinetto Armenico, by Filippo Bonanni. Classified as an instrument of the poor. Until the end of the 18th century, however, there was no significant further development of the European free reed technique, which was represented in Europe by the jaw harp. Asian free reed organ instruments in Europe. In the 17th to 18th century CE, Asian free reed organs came for the first time to Europe. It was not recognized that these instruments worked with a free reed technique. This drawing is probably a Khaen, with the wind chamber missing. 1777, the French Jesuit, Joseph-Marie Amiot, sent 4 sheng instruments from China to France. 1779, described in Memoir sur la musique de Chinois. It was the first technically correct recording of the Asian free reed technique in Europe. The first European free reeds. Before the Asian free reed technique came to Europe, the stop reed technique and the double reed technique were known in Europe. The double reed technique came to Europe from Central Asia and is used for flutes. The stop reed technique has been known in Europe since the 9th century BCE. The stop reed technology has been further developed in Europe for instruments such as clarinet and saxophone. And the stop reed technique was also used for organ pipes to imitate flute instruments by using different resonators. These stop reed pipes you can usually find in the middle above the keyboard in an organ instrument. One of the first organ instruments to use the stop reed technology was the regal organ. Mr. Henry Lowell Mason wrote in his book about the history of the American cabinet organ, published 1901, that the Bible regal organ is the origin of all free reed organs. Mr. Henry Lowell Mason, of Mason and Hamlin, Boston, Massachusetts, USA, was one of the most famous and successful builders of American free reed organ in the 19th century. At the time of Mason and Hamlin, the origins of the free reed organ had not yet been thoroughly researched. The Bible regal is a part of the free reed prehistory, but not a key one. What Mr. Hamlin was right about is that the stop reed technique, as used in the Bible regal, was important for the development of the first European free reed variant. After the first free reed instruments came to Europe from Asia in the 17th and 18th centuries, a European free reed variant appears for the first time. 1780, Tendemen resolvendi problema. Christian Gottlieb Kratzenstein, German natural scientist, physicist and university lecturer, converted stop reed pipes of the Vox Humana type into free reed pipes. Kratzenstein also developed resonators for his new free reeds, which probably were based on the human oral anatomy, to produce the natural sounds E, I, O, U. All the parts were put together to create the first speaking machine were free reed that could speak the vowels. What this speaking machine looked like is unfortunately not known. The machine was probably burnt in one of the city fires of the time. There are no technical drawings. 1790, the German priest George Joseph Vogler, composer, organist, music teacher and music theorist, discovered this new free reed variant in St. Petersburg, and began to install this technology in Europe's church organs. This first European free reed variant Phase 1 were still very different from the Asian ones, and were based on the European stop reed pipes. The Asian free reed technique has now been studied better by European scientists and musical instrument makers. It was discovered that the resonators have no influence on the pitch, but only the width or length of the reed. These studies led to the development of another improved free reed variant, Phase 2, without resonators. The reed has now been screwed, or riveted, onto a plate, with the matching cutout. The reed only vibrates when wind is blown through the cutout, from one direction. We recognize these airflow interruptions, at a constant frequency, as sound. This new free reed variant was first developed in Europe, around 1810. The traditional Asian free reeds can vibrate in both wind directions, with the help of the bamboo resonators. The Asia free reeds are ideoglot, cut from one piece. The pivot point is at the level of the frame. Characteristics of the new free reed variant. The reed vibrates only by wind from one direction. The reed is mounted above or below the cutout. The reed does not need a resonator. The pitch does not change with the wind pressure. Expressive playing is possible. One of the first instruments to emerge from this European free reed variant Phase 2 was the harmonica, also known as Aeolian. In a harmonica, the reeds are attached in opposite directions, so that one reed vibrates when you blow wind, and the opposite reed vibrates when you suck wind. This development led to many new inventions, such as the accordion, the concertina, the symphonium, the Aeolian, the harmonica, and many more. The first free reed organ. Orgue expressif, is usually named as the first free reed organ in history. Built by the Frenchman, Gabriel Joseph Grigny. This organ was built with the European free reed variant Phase I, which was first developed by Kratzenstein in 1780. This was followed by instruments that experimented with the traditional jaw harp technique. The fishharmonica was the first free reed organ to use the European Phase II free reed variant. The first fishharmonica had only one row of free reeds and one bellows, and could therefore only cover a small range of notes. The free reeds of the first fishharmonica patent were fine-tuned with wax, just like their Asian ancestors. Free reed tuning. In the next variants, new mechanical tuning devices were patented. A development process for free reed organs has begun in Europe. In France, Germany, and England. Until Alexander François Debigne finally managed to build a free reed organ at the highest level of development. The first free reed organ that has the same sound range as a church organ. How the harmonium replaced the church organ. A church organ has different groups of pipes that can imitate other instruments. Many of the pipes are not visible and are installed at the back of the organ. With the stop reeds, the color is defined by the resonator, and the pitch is set with the tuning wire. For labial pipes, made of metal or wood, the length set the pitch, and the resonator shape defines the color. These pipes are grouped together, which groups can be set on and off with the help of sliders, also called stops. In a harmonium, the labial and stop reed pipes are replaced by free reeds. As with the labial pipes, the size of the reeds determines the pitch. The free reeds are also grouped together. And these groups can be made playable, on and off, with the stops. The space and material reduction was enormous, and had a great influence on the costs. Now it was possible for small churches, or individuals, to buy a musical instrument with the ton range of a large church organ, for a low cost. Another advantage was that the free reeds do not go out of tune, in contrast to labial pipes. Because of the great demand, Debigne built a factory to produce more harmonium. Other manufacturers of free reed organs followed, but harmonium has since been the generic term for free reed organs from Europe, with the French models leading. Special characteristics of a harmonium. Free reeds are screwed onto a plate, individually or in octave groups. The pressure bellows technique is used. This was all done before the first free reed organ was sent to the U.S.A. Free reed organ goes U.S.A. Harmonium organs and other free reed instruments were sent to the U.S.A. shortly after their invention. How the free reed organ history continues in the U.S.A. Who was the first to build a free reed organ made in the U.S.A.? Was there an American free reed organ, of its own? Was the harmonica first invented in the USA and not in Europe? All this, and much, much more, in the upcoming parts of the U.S.A. Free Reed Organ History series. Come with, to the USA of the 19th century, where the free reed organ will reach its final peak.